Hi, everyone. This is Jackie Cooper with CryptoMom2 Talk Show and the Blockchain Legal Institute. I want to thank everyone for hopping on this episode and remind you to like and subscribe because there are many conversations that I have in the queue, and I would definitely like to have you in the know of what's going on within the blockchain community. Today, I have a special guest on, and I'll be hopping over to in a second. We've been talking about career development and skills that are needed within our community. And for many of you that know, my background's law, but I'm also an educator in the special education side. And being in the elementary side, I know what it's needed in order to go from grade K all the way to college, all the way to career. And I know my career path has not been straight and narrow. I have navigated both as an entrepreneur, as well as in the blockchain space, as well as an author, and now a CEO of the Blockchain Legal Institute. So a lot of the skills that I've learned in the what I'll call the traditional space, I've applied over into the blockchain space, and I'm constantly asking questions and learning as a lifelong learner. But I know that many of the individuals who have contacted me have asked, how do we get into the blockchain space? In fact, that's one reason why I created Blockchain Legal Institute, because a young attorney came up to me at a conference and said, how are you doing this? And I explained I was really in the education space, but I'm happy to provide resources. And I realized there was no centralized library for the decentralized resources that we are all accessing. So that is what BLI is. And I would welcome everyone to go over to bli.tools and check it out, because we have information on artificial intelligence, Ethereum, Bitcoin, blockchain use cases, news, events, you name it, it's a centralized library. And as I was networking, I came across crypto recruiters because of the fact that I had been asked by different individuals, well, how do I get a job in this space? So I was starting to do research, which, I wanted to add to the BLI library. And that's how I ended up coming across this company and the individual that we'll be talking with today. And I'm really excited to have Trevor, you on today, because you have been in this field for a while, and you also know you've been talking to companies, so you can give a lot of great insights. So welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much, Jackie, for the kind introduction. And, a lot of the things that you had mentioned, resonates with me as well, too. I think a lot of people in, crypto, blockchain, Web3, we can kind of all bunch those into, one group,
Yeah.
have a very unique journey. And, it's not necessarily where you start in this space is not necessarily where you're going to end,
Mm,
right?
exactly.
And a lot of individuals, have a lot of transferable skills from this quote unquote traditional world that are also very applicable to this space. So very excited for this conversation and just to kind of share some of my insights and experiences, of working in this space. It's been extremely exciting despite of all of the other things that people typically kind of give us a bad rap about. But a little bit about me, I've been with this organization, the Crypto Recruiters. We are a woman-owned organization that started actually as a New Year's resolution to rehumanize the actual recruiting experience, right? And I had been in recruiting. I mean, my career in recruiting is, gosh, over a decade long now. I don't want to date myself too much, but one of the things that one of the reasons I had stepped away from it at a point was because it was very much, transactional. There really wasn't that kind of, relationship based type of interaction that were going on. It was very much just driven by making a placement, collecting a paycheck, and then that's it, right? And that's something that really didn't resonate with me. So I stepped away from it for a few years. And during the pandemic, a lot of things had changed in the nonprofit space that I was working in. And that led me to really kind of reconsidering re entering back into the recruiting space. But I said to myself that I'm only going to do it with an organization that really matches my values and, the want and need to treat people the right way. And, in Web3 and blockchain and crypto, I think that something that stands out among the individuals is that it's very community driven. It's very collaborative. And I think that's something that's needed to make sure that we can overcome the challenges that we have in this space right now. So, long story short, I reached out to Emily, who is the founder of this organization. We had a great conversation, and fast forward, here we are 2 years later, and I actually was an enthusiast, a learner, a little bit of an investor in this type of thing, doing something with various crypto products. But I found myself spending a ridiculous amount of time outside of my normal job, every probably waking hour that I had researching this stuff, learning this stuff, figuring out how to use this stuff. And that really passion continued to grow to the point where, after a year or so, I made that decision personally that this is where I want to be career wise.
So what was your original background? Did you study HR? Did you, from a schooling perspective, where did you start?
Yeah, so I went to business school and graduated with a degree in entrepreneurship and a minor in international finance. So strangely enough, and I think that you'll see this kind of stories or you'll hear these kind of stories with many individuals. They don't necessarily, most people that get into recruiting, they don't quote unquote go to school for recruiting. I mean, I don't I honestly don't even know if they have any kind of classes or curriculum that is specifically dedicated to people in the recruiting field. It was a lot of kind of trial by error and learning on the job. So I had met someone through a mutual friend, and this is how the importance of networking goes back to even my early days in my career, right? It was someone that I knew, and at the time, I was looking for a job, and I said, hey, you know what, I'm really interested in finding a job, do you know any opportunities? And they said, yeah, I work for a recruiting company, I work for a tech company, and we're looking to hire people. And at that time I said, well, I'm a bit of a nerd, I like technology, I understand computers, my dad was a computer programmer back in the late 80s, early 90s. So, as a child, I was very kind of interested in this space. And I told the person then, I said, but, I'm not technical. I don't code. I'm not a developer. I'm not an engineer. They said, oh, no, 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 that doesn't matter. You're really good with talking to people and you like helping people, right? I said, sure. And then that led to a conversation with the team. And then after numerous interviews, I ended up landing my first recruiting job. And that was in information technology. That was all more on the infrastructure side at the time. So that leads a little bit about to how I got to here today. Is because when I first started to get serious about blockchain and learning about crypto and Web3, and I know honestly, I don't even know if it was even called Web3 when I first really got into it. I understood that my understanding of what technology was and the core infrastructure and the importance of that, I seen a lot of things that were being done just in a new way when it comes to blockchain and crypto. So, that kind of aha moment happened. The light bulb went off when I said, wow, this is going to be quite different. This is going to be huge. I started to kind of connecting the dots and I said, what happened in the late 90s and early 2000s when it came just to the internet and how that was evolving, and a lot of the FANG companies that were starting out in the garages, and Zuckerberg being in college. I mean, I remember signing up for a Facebook account, you needed a college actual email address, right? And then fast forward to today to what that is. But
It's amazing.
I saw this technology and I said, wow, I said, what that was and the way that it changed the world, I really said that this is going to be something different. And shame on me. I didn't know back then in the late 90s and early 2000s how actual instrumental this technology would be on the lives, and how it impacts our lives. And I always made a vow to myself. I said, if I can ever be involved in something on the ground floor again that's going to change humanity, I'm going to be there. And when this opportunity came about, I really did some soul searching. I was really reluctant to get back into recruiting because I had had, not the best experience. I wouldn't say a bad experience because everything's a learning experience and that can all help you kind of, get to the next level. But it was just different then. And, that led me to doing some soul searching and, taking a risk. I think that one of the things, if people are looking to get into this space, they need to understand that, now is not the necessarily easiest time, quote unquote, to get into blockchain, crypto, Web3, but with great risk come great rewards, right? And I think that we are truly in a stage where we are pioneers. We're still learning as this goes. And I think that it takes a certain resiliency and determination and a bit of innovation, right? You have to have that entrepreneurial spirit. And I would say that that's one thing that helps from my college years, is just being able to always adapt, being able to always grow, and having a mindset that, quitting is not an option. So I think that, those characteristics and qualities and virtues are necessary in any individual that wants to enter into this space, independent of, whether you're going to work for a gaming company, a DeFi company, a regulatory compliance company, a true, blockchain protocol company, a software development organization, an education organization, a, boot camp. It doesn't matter. I think that you just really have to have a lot of those similar characteristics that I just mentioned before to be successful in this space.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I know that I've talked to HR individuals within the blockchain world, and those are, I would say, are probably the area that for some individuals who are looking at getting into the recruiting career path, HR might be a way to go, an
Yeah.
alternative way to go. And I know on the Blockchain Legal Institute, I have a page dedicated to the HR side, just because there's always a legal overlay anytime in any
Mhm.
business, but there are things that HR professionals probably need to know when they're hiring individuals and that probably applies to you as well, because
Yeah.
you always have to vet the individuals,
Oh
both
my God. So important.
from the resume perspective and the skill set perspective, and on the one side the individuals that you're vetting, but then also you are dealing with the companies that are doing the hiring, and they might not actually know what it is that they need. They might have a job category, but I'm sure that you help them develop the actual description and tease out from them, well, what skills do you need? So that way you can make sure that when you're placing the person, they actually fill the expectations of the company. Otherwise, sometimes
Yeah.
they might say that they need this, but in their mind, they haven't really defined it. And as a result, when they get the person, it's not what they expect because they weren't specific enough as to what their needs were. So,
True. True.
are you finding that with some of the companies, or are they now specific enough because they've gone through certain growth patterns that they now know what it is?
Yeah. Yeah, growth pains for sure, right? And just that kind of correlation between HR and recruitment, because there are some similarities, but there are a lot of differences, right? But I think that HR professionals, if you do have that kind of background, it is an easier shift into getting into recruiting. It's a different skill set, but still some of the fundamentals and some of the things underlying both type of professions, they have those kind of correlations, if you will, right? So it's very important to have that HR background understanding, and to have that kind of collaboration between, the recruiting teams, and I would say all departments in an organization, because, one of the things about this space, and, I mean, let's address the elephant in the room, right? It was a bit of the wild, wild west. There were a lot of things that were going on that wasn't necessarily compliant. There were a lot of things that were going on that weren't necessarily even ethical, and a lot of things that were going on that weren't legal. So with the FTX situation, the gift that continues to keep giving till this day, we were able to learn from that. And as an industry, I think that there's a lot more scrutiny and attention being put towards doing this quote unquote the right way, and making sure that we're you have a proper accounting system, right? That you have a legal team, that you have a compliance team, that all the people that you choose to be on your team are extremely vetted. And one of the things that you had mentioned there about the importance of vetting on a team, a few years ago when I first got into this professionally, there was just an influx of money coming in from venture capital. If you said, I want to create a company that puts kittens on the blockchain, someone would have given you $100 million. No questions asked, no white paper, no business plan. How many people on your team? I got a few people. Okay, I'll give you 200 million. Right? So it was so kind of just there wasn't the true discipline that I think that was needed, and I think a lot of people, because there was a lot of buzz and there was a lot of positive sentiment, and a lot of these companies had created their valuations based on a cryptocurrency price, and at the time, Bitcoin was going up, everything was going up, so
Right.
you had a lot of people that came into this space thinking that it was an opportunity to get rich quick. And this was not only from the retail investor side. I think that this also went to the institutional investment side, right? I mean, I think everyone really kind of got blinded by the light and thought that this was just, going to continuously go up, that there would never be any hiccups in the road, that, there would never be any oversight. And as you see, where we are today, that's obviously not evident. So it's not true. So I think that, vetting a team now is very important. This even comes from the VC side. I remember at the conference that I actually just spoke to about the venture capitalists, they were talking about how they now are going to make sure they say, what is your product? Is it a working product? What problems are you trying to solve? What's your roadmap? What's your team? Let me talk to the team members. Where do they come from? What's their experience? What are their successes? What are their failures? All those things that you would typically ask in any other kind of traditional business, now companies are starting to ask that from the VC side. And when it comes to the hiring and talent side, you know, employers, they are much more vigilant in terms of what they are asking. And they are looking at people, right? They're asking the tough questions now. They are going to be much more prone to do references and things of that nature. And some of this stuff wasn't even going on from the client side before, right? But now this is. So I think that there's a much more attention to being cautious. It's not that it's necessarily harder per se to enter into this space, whether you're a candidate, whether you're a organization trying to seek funding. But I think that we're getting back to fundamentals, and I think that we're at a time where the children have left the room, and the adults are here, to think to do things the right way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, while you were talking about the company side, and I was thinking about the employee side. So from that perspective, I think that individuals who are applying to different companies need to do as much due diligence and vetting as well, because
Yeah,
we as individuals who are applying to a company, we have the same challenge, and we don't know necessarily if we're stepping into an FTX situation. We don't know the liquidity of the company. And when you are changing jobs, you're assuming that the company is going to be around for a while, or however long you want to work with them. So
yeah,
that way you can pay your bills, help your family, do whatever you think that you want to do long term. And if a company is now, I'll say this and then I'm going to backtrack for a second. If a company is uh, maybe not as strong as the employee thinks, and then doesn't last long, then that means that that person is back in the job market searching again. So on the flip side, anyone coming into the space, I think, has to understand that there's calculated risk
yes,
depending upon the type of business that you're in. So for
correct,
example, in a cryptocurrency type of company, there is a different calculated risk than when you are working for Walmart, who might be using the blockchain technology. So
correct.
again, when you, as the individual applying for a job, if you want to step into a new field where it is like you were talking about Facebook, when Facebook first started, everyone probably thought, oh, that's a risky venture, don't work for them. And now, a few years down the road, everyone sees, that it's more stable. But
Mm,
even within large companies, stability can be not always there.
yeah,
The markets can change. So I guess the reason why I'm saying that is for those that are listening, if you're choosing to step into this space, choose to step into this because of the creativity that's in this space,
absolutely.
and choose to step into this, like you said, that we are making a difference in a way that we might not see at the moment, the impact that we're having down the road and the good that can come out of it. But everyone has to kind of evaluate their own personal comfort of where they are within their own economic status,
Yeah.
and
And
what their needs are.
and that was great because it is about a risk profile, right? And kind of going back to the employee side, right? Some of the employers that we've worked with, and this is just industry wide. This is not necessarily just the clients that we've been so fortunate to support, and we do have great clients. Is that some of them say, I need an a team member that never worked for a rug pull, right? I need someone that needed to have the insight to do the due diligence on their own, to understand and see the red flags, to see that this company was just getting, a crazy valuation with no working product, to see that, the team necessarily was kind of spotty, right? So I think that as an individual, someone that is a job seeker, no matter where you are, right? Yes, you do need to do your due diligence, but you also need to take that calculated risk, and you need to, I think, take the path of least resistance and understand, where do your strengths lie and how to really kind of exploit those strengths. So, if you're looking to get into this space right now, applying for Coinbase, and if you have zero experience in this space right now, it's going to be a very hard challenge. It's not impossible. I do not want it to even give that impression, because I've had people that have worked for other organizations that have made that transition that necessarily didn't have quote unquote Web3 experience or crypto blockchain experience, but there was something else that they were doing maybe in their particular line of work that made them very qualified, and they just had a passion for being in blockchain, crypto, Web3. So some people have been, a very high level CMO in a career of, 10, 15 years of experience, and they could see the writing on the wall, and they understood where this technology was. They may not have been doing it, quote unquote, in a professional career, but they were involved in a community. They were working for a DAO. They were volunteering for small startup organizations. They were doing fractional work. They were on a board at a blockchain crypto organization, right? So, they weren't maybe doing it, quote unquote, as a full-time job, but they were still involved in the ethos, and they were still making contributions, and they were still continuously educating themselves about the technology, so that when you get that opportunity to speak to someone that is going to potentially give you a job, you need to be able to talk the talk, walk the walk. You have to be able to apply yourself. You have to be able to come into this situation understanding what is the problem that you are going to help an organization solve. You can't just be passive, right? You have to be the aggressive one, in the sense that you need to understand, where do I fit in this entire picture? And I think that, an important question that anyone should ask when they're trying to get into this space is, what are you here for? Right? And I don't say that kind of to be, cute or anything of that nature, but really, I think that people need to understand. Sometimes people want to get into this space because they say, you know what, I want to get in, I want to have a startup, I want to exit. And that's okay, right? Some people say, I want to get into this space because I'm just really passionate about it, and I want to, see if this could be something that I want to do long term. That's okay. Some people get into this space because they say, you know what, I want to change the world. I want to create a payment system that is going to allow people in, emerging organizations and emerging companies to benefit, and to get access to different financial markets, and bank the unbanked. There are a multitude of different reasons why you want to get to this space, but you need to be true with yourself and really do that soul searching before you take that dive. Because once you're here, it's going to change, it's going to evolve and morph to something that you may not even be prepared for. I mean, 10 years ago, did we see what we currently are able to do with a cell phone? I couldn't envision that. The first person that made a cell phone probably had no idea that it would be able to do all the things that it is today. I mean, we're literally walking around with a small computer that can actually make phone calls
Exactly.
in addition to that, right?
Yeah.
So things change. And I think that as individuals and professionals, if you want to get into this space, I think that you have to understand that what worked yesterday is not necessarily going to work tomorrow, right? And that this space moves at an incredible pace, and you have to always be a student of the industry.
Well, and the other thing that I want to add on to that is you can be in the blockchain Web3 space and still be in what I call the traditional space. So I'm looking at a list
Yes.
of companies who are in Web3, from Aloe Yoga to Alpha Romero to Ambush to ASICS to Ashton Martin to the Australian Open to Audi, to Absolute Vodka,
Puma,
Adidas.
Adidas,
You know,
Nike.
there are so many companies that are navigating and transitioning. So you can start to get a career path in this area within what I still call a traditional company, because there's nothing traditional anymore when you start to navigate over. And also, it's a paradigm. What sometimes is considered fringe
Yeah.
becomes traditional. So,
Yes.
again, I'm really cautious about using the word traditional, because it's more about the evolution of the technology and the
Yeah.
application within our community. So it is important, I think, for everyone who's listening to think about where are you in your education for the knowledge that you can bring to your next career step. And if you
Absolutely.
aren't educating yourself about the technologies, it doesn't mean you have to, like you said, you don't have to be a coder, but you at least have to do some reading, which is why I created the Blockchain Legal Institute, only because there's so much out there. It's really
Yes.
hard to know where to go. And having a library like, and people are constantly contributing to the BLI. So because there are resources I don't know about that I want to make sure that everyone else has access to. But
Yeah.
it enriches you both as an employer to
Yeah.
know what's going on, as well as an employee, because as our world changes, so does the need for our ability to be fluid.
Yeah, and you have to change with that, and I think that,
Yeah.
what you all are doing is really great because, as you mentioned, right, there's so much noise out there, and that's, something about this space. There's a lot of contributors, and there are so many people. Content is king in this space, right? Everyone's putting out content and things of that nature. There's Telegram, there's Discord, there's Twitter, X, formerly known as Twitter, right? There's LinkedIn, there's Facebook, there's so many different places, right? That people are communicating. There's IRL in real life events. There are virtual events, right? We are a much more connected space. There are job fairs. There are conferences. There are conferences within conferences. There are many subsets and after parties and meetups that are around the conferences. So there's just so much going on out there. And I think that, as a professional, whatever side that you're on in this space, you have to continuously stay aware of the trends. You have to be forward thinking. You have to see, what's coming ahead 2, 3, 4, 5 steps ahead of where we actually are, right? I think that's something that makes people very successful in this space is that, we're chess players. We're not playing checkers. We're seeing what's being put on the board. We understand that we have a board, and we understand, the necessary pieces and what moves can be done, and how that complements us as professionals. So, you have to take that true calculated, you said risk, but you have to do understanding as well too, right? That, well, if there's a lot of negativity in, the quote unquote, traditional media, right, around NFTs. Do you want to go and join an NFT organization, an NFT studio? Right now, if you are an artist and that's where your passions are, and if you actually are saying, I understand that we've had a lot of problems with this, or that there were a lot of issues and a lot of people that were just getting into NFTs as celebrities that were just trying to kind of make this weird flex. But I understand that NFTs are much more than a JPEG. I understand that NFTs have the capability to be included or involved with tokenization of trillions of assets. I understand that NFTs can be used as a way to, put a deed or a license or a certificate on the blockchain that's going to be, non-fungible and immutable, right, and always be there. If you understand those kind of things and you have a product that's actually going to solve a real world problem, then go for it, right? But once again, that takes you to understand everything about that space, what you're going to do in that space, and how you're going to solve a problem that is going to be different than what is already out there. So I think that one of the things that did a disservice for our industry, a few years ago when we were in, the peak of the bull run and Bitcoin was 69,000, is that, a lot of companies were just getting into this because they were copycat companies.
Yeah.
How many wallets were out there? But
Oh, there's
we're
a ton.
how many of those wallets were actually trying to solve a problem? Then we have the situation with the Voyagers and so many other ones. And I'm not just calling out, companies and trying to, be slanderous towards them, but a lot of them, right? I don't know if they were truly innovative. I don't know if they were really that different. So, when you have 1,000 crypto wallets, how do I, as even a user, choose one of those? What benefit does one have over the other? Right. So I think that, fast forward now, you as a job seeker, you need to be thinking about those kind of things. And one of the points that you had brought up, Jackie, which was great, is that you don't necessarily have to work for a quote unquote, crypto Web3 company, right? Now we are to the point where there was a recent piece that came out by Citibank, right? How what they're doing in terms of working with various protocols in terms of their efforts of tokenization. We have BlackRock talking about blockchain technology. I have been in this space long enough to know that I couldn't transfer money from my personal bank account to a crypto exchange. And I'm not talking about some of the small crypto exchanges, I'm talking about some of the bigger ones at the time. I could not physically take money from my personal banking account and send it to a crypto exchange. I had to do a wire. I had to send it here. I had to go to a Bitcoin, ATM machine, and then get that, and then transfer it on chain, and then transfer it into another token, and then have that token, and then deposit that. I mean, it was a nightmare. It was a headache, right?
Exactly.
So now it's the fact that a lot of billionaires were saying that crypto's worth less than dog crap. Now they've flipped that and they're saying, you know what? Yeah, I believe in the power of tokenization. J.P. Morgan's, Deloitte's, State Street's. I mean, all these organizations, they may not have a quote unquote digital asset or crypto or Web3 division. Actually, let me take that back.
Yes.
They
Yes.
will have
Yes.
those, but
Yes.
they will not on the public side say, we are a Web3 crypto
Exactly.
blockchain company, right? So they
Exactly.
have these small little silos within the organization. JP Morgan has Onyx, right? There's the State Street Digital Asset Group, there's Fidelity Digital Assets, there's so many different groups and entities that are being developed in these larger organizations. So as a professional, right, if you have a banking background, if you have a finance background, then it may be up to you, right, to say, wow, I'm going to go out and do my research and find a large organization that's been around for 100 years and connect with the people in that group that are starting up this small silo within that organization, because that's probably going to be, your way to enter into the space. That's going to be your way to get here. Maybe work for a Web 2 company or a Web 2.5 company, right, that is going to transition into Web 3. Work for a traditional organization that has been established, that has solid funding, that has, a overall hierarchy and a very strong leadership structure, and see, is there any opportunity for me to get in there? And if you do find a traditional organization that is not involved in blockchain, crypto, Web3, you know what? Maybe you can be the individual to talk to leadership and management and say, you know what, I'm seeing some kind of synergies here. I'm seeing that, I can see the writing on the wall that, this type of technology is going to be impacted by blockchain in some way. Here's my business plan. Here's how I can come in and help you all take it to the next level, right? So you have to be entrepreneurial in that sense. You
Yeah.
can't be
Yeah.
on the sideline.
Yeah.
If you don't see a job, out there that matches what your skill set is or what you want to do, maybe you can be the one to create it.
I agree. And on that note, everyone, who and where you can create it with is going to be with the crypto recruiters.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether your
So
organization is looking to hire or someone that's looking for an opportunity, right? We do a great job at being able to educate the community, and and I love what you're doing. We have weekly shows that we are doing just to provide a kind of roadmap as an individual what to do, right? How to make yourself more marketable on LinkedIn because that's still a very popular platform. Make sure that you have a presence on Telegram, that you're communicating with people on X, Twitter, that you are going and meeting people in your communities, that you're going to networking events, right? You have to do these things. If you're working with a recruiter, that's great. Work with multiple recruiters. And if you're working with a recruiter and you apply to a job and they don't reach back out to you, take it upon yourself to be proactive and reach out to them, right? You should never, and that's not just for this particular industry, but I'll kind of go off a tangent, but for anyone, right? As a job seeker, you should never um, let someone else work harder to find your success in a career than you are willing to work yourself.
that's true with every job too. You need to be putting in the effort that you want because you can get so
Yeah.
much out of it.
It's a,
So
it's a, it's really honestly, Jackie, it's a part of it, right?
yeah,
So have relationships with multiple recruiters, and then ask them the tough questions, right? What's your model? How are you getting paid? What are your successes? What other organizations have you been able to place people at? Do the hard work. I think that we have to think about this, our journey into Web3 crypto and blockchain, as if you were going to buy a new house, right? And a lot of people don't ask the same kind of degree of questions that they would if they're trying to find a new home and a quote unquote job or a career as they would if they were actually trying to find a home that was going to put shelter and a roof over their head. When you're trying to find a new job, do you ask about the community? What's the crime rate? Is there a public transportation system? What's the school system like? Where's the nearest food? What are my neighbors like? Right? We do these things, but we don't do it when it comes to our professional career. So you need to vet organizations. You need to do the research. You need to see what is being said about them on social media platforms. If you can't find anything public about an organization, reach out to someone that may share a similar role to where you're trying to be. Have a conversation with them. And believe it or not, a lot of people think that, there's no way, like, how can I have a conversation with someone? People in Web3 and crypto and blockchain, they're so busy. They will never want to talk to me. I'm not in the space. Oh my gosh. I why would they want to talk to me? Believe it or not, people, one, they love to talk about themselves. And then two, within crypto, blockchain, and
that's why I have a
Web3,
talk show.
yeah, it's a community, right? It's a community
Yeah,
of individuals that, we genuinely care and we want to see other people succeed in this space. And I
yeah,
think that,
yeah.
with everything that's gone on in the last few years, that is even more of the case, right? We are collectively working together. I don't necessarily look at, another staffing agency as quote unquote my competition, right? Now, if I was working in biotech, pharma, or engineering, or manufacturing, or education, all the different industries that I worked in my recruiting career, that would have been different, right? You know what? I might not have actually had a conversation with another recruiter that was outside of my organization. If I was internally working for an organization, I may not want to, partner with an outside agency, right? But it's different now because there are so many other problems that we need to solve that we don't have the time to be combating against each other.
I
We
love
need
that
to,
philosophy too, because
yeah,
it's a cooperative type of
very much.
relationship. And like you said, there are a lot of problems in our world that we need to be facing and addressing. And I think the idea that collaboration, communication within our business community, if that could even carry over into our political community, that would be awesome.
Yeah. And one of the things that I had mentioned, Jackie, just recently at this event that I was at, if you want to get involved as a professional in blockchain, crypto, and Web3, you need to do whatever you need to do to get off of the sidelines and
Yeah,
be a part of this space, right? If you can't find a job, volunteer for an organization. If you can't get a job at one of the top, 10 companies by market cap within this space, maybe start with a company that's in the top 200, 300. Look out for startup organizations that are getting into the space. Find a DAO that may be local to you, right? Partner with organizations that are established like ours, right? There's something, there's always something that you can do. So I
There,
think that,
yeah,
we have to stop playing this kind of victim kind of mindset in this space. And, as job seekers saying, well, I applied to 100 jobs and I can't find a job. That kind of mindset will not, you will not be successful with that kind of mindset in this space. If you apply to 100 jobs and it didn't work, apply for 150. If you apply for 150 and it didn't work, 200. If you apply for 200, 300, 300, 400. And you have to literally do whatever you need to do until you get a foot in the door. And you have to be the one that's going to think outside of the box. You have to be creative. You have to be willing sometimes, I think, in this space to take a step back now in the short term to take numerous steps forward in the future, because this is not going anywhere. Blockchain is not going anywhere. Crypto in some iteration is not going anywhere. Whatever happens with CBDCs and anything else kind of innovation that come along, Web3 is not going anywhere. If anything, this is the best time to get into this space because it is tough. It's difficult. A lot of people don't have a true understanding of what it is, but that is your unique opportunity to be a true pioneer here now and get in when there's kind of, I would say, even less barriers to entry. Because when this does become adopted by the general masses, right, and trillions of dollars start pouring in from institutions, and I mean, I think that the train will have left the station, and your opportunity to get on board is going to be much harder. 2, 3, 5, especially 10 years down the road. This is going to be something that is going to impact all ways of life. In blockchain, believe it or not, it's going to be in everything: supply chain, healthcare, education, gaming, government entities. You know, elections will probably be one day held
it,
entirely on the blockchain. So
it
it's just
and it's already
about
starting to. It's definitely already starting to be. And I agree with you. And I want to kind of bring up another area that we just on the surface touched on. The idea of we talked about those in who are looking for jobs, who are already in the job market,
yeah,
college students who are stepping into this area now. I think it's also important for those that are listening to understand that you can intern, like you can intern with the Blockchain Legal Institute. You can intern with some of these other companies to get, like you said, the maybe not the direct dollar income from them, but you're getting resume value. You're also getting experience. You're making contacts that you would not normally, simply by being in the room with people.
yes,
So this is another way to open up that door and to have that relationship with someone who can then turn to someone else that they know and say, hey, this person did a really great job working on a project that, they were an intern for. I think that they might be a great staff person in your company. So that's the type of thing that you, like you said, you have to be creative in how you're navigating this space. And, for those of us that are in this space, we've done multiple things. So we're applying our skill set in ways that are creative. But for those that are new to the space, again, there's no limit to what you can do. Your limit is only within what you think you can do. And
absolutely.
and it's like everything else. This is a very open door type of space if you figure out how to open those doors. And you just have to be be willing to do a little bit of the work.
Yeah, I mean, and even in that, like, start little and continue to continuously, exponentially grow from there, right? I think that one of the things that will also help you in terms of getting into this space is actually utilizing some of the technology.
Yes.
A lot of people in blockchain, crypto, and Web3, I've talked to job seekers, and I think even some organizations themselves, and I don't know if they've actually even used what they're preaching.
Yeah.
So how can we expect, to onboard millions and billions of people to use this technology that we continuously to go around and tote as being so great and life changing and revolutionary, but we're not willing to use it ourselves?
I
Are
agree.
that, someone is a job seeker, they never created a MetaMask account, or they've never transferred money from Coinbase to a ledger. They've never gone out and actually purchased anything with a crypto debit card. They've never, tried to even learn how to code with Solidity or Rust or Move or to actually create a smart contract.
I
If you're a
I
developer,
agree
you've
with
never gone to a boot camp.
yeah, I totally agree with you. As a teacher and also a person in the space, in writing the Bitcoin Cinderella books, I realized I had to get my hands quote unquote dirty. So I'm a Bitcoin miner, I'm a node owner, I've created NFTs. I've had to move the money, like you said, from the dollars to the crypto to the cold wallet, things like that. Only because if I'm writing in the book, I have to I have to have I have to know how hard it is or how easy it is in order to be able to describe it and then learn from it. Because, again, I tell everyone, yeah, I'm still scared every time I move, crypto because it's not like, I could go to my bank and say, hey, I accidentally moved it to a different wallet. I have
Yeah,
to be careful because otherwise it will be out in the ethers. But it's really
yeah,
not as hard as I make it because it's over the years it's become a lot more simple. With
yes,
QR codes that they've created instead of you having to type all the numbers in or the letters and they've
yeah, the long
the
sequence.
it, yeah, I am I have a Bitcoin wallet on Nodeless. I mean, again, but I also own a node. So I'm going both ways of the equation. And I think you're right. For those that are in the space, you have to experiment and use the product. You wouldn't
Yeah,
want to sell a Nike sneaker if you've never worn one, because
yeah,
you can't say that it feels comfortable or that it's the best fit. Again, you really have to be a believer in the product.
yeah. And you have to be a believer in the space too, and the
Yeah.
potential of what it's going to be, right? If you're an artist and you're looking to, be a creative director or designer, or, you're utilizing UI UX design, right? And you want to get and work for a crypto blockchain company, start creating a portfolio, play around with some of the existing type of technology and products and see what works, what doesn't work. How can you make that easier? And like, as you mentioned, right? The interfaces on a lot of these type of different products has changed, has evolved over the years, and I've been able to see that as a user of it, but I only know that because I've actually been using it, right? If
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
trying to work for an NFT organization, I hope that you have minted an NFT. I hope that you know about OpenSea and any other kind of major platform. I hope that you've done the bare minimum, right? And I think that you have to uh, always go above and beyond, and think about this as that in this space, blockchain, crypto, Web3, whatever you learn, whatever knowledge you acquire, you have a essentially another twin of yourself that's also going out there and learning more. And then that continues you to continue to up your game. And you cannot be stagnant. You can't sit around. You can't wait for things. You can't just think that it's going to be the status quo. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about this space, and one of the things that's also challenging about it. But it makes me continuously optimistic about the future. And there are use cases that I can't even simply imagine right now because the technology hasn't gotten there, but it's going to get there. And then think about this, Jackie. I mean, there are already organizations that are talking about quantum computing and
I know.
how is that going to impact blockchain? I'm like, we haven't even like we're just starting to scratch the surface here, and then you got to think about that. And there are organizations that are already planning ahead for that. So that's the beautiful thing about this space, is that it's always moving fast. And like I started off with saying, you take great risk for great rewards. And I think that right now we are at a time where, this is truly pioneering. So if you want to be a part of something that, you can tell your children and your grandchildren about, what were you doing when this technology was really taking off? Where were you at? How are you trying to be a part of this? And if you truly do want to be in this industry, talk to people, learn, ask tough questions. I think it's much more easy to do that upfront rather than, when you get into an organization and say, oh, I didn't know it was going to be like this. Well, shame on you, because you didn't do the homework, you didn't take the time to get the information that is readily available. So just ask the questions, be vulnerable, be willing to make mistakes, because those are learning experiences that are going to really propel your career.
So on that note, I really appreciate our time together. I know we're going to have more than one conversation, and every time we do get together, we have a lot to share together.
Yes.
So as I be sure everyone who's listening, I will definitely have Trevor's contact information in the blog below, so you'll be able to click over and connect with him. So when you're looking for a job, or if you have a job that you need filled, you can connect with him on both sides of the equation. But as I always say at the end of all my shows, be kind to yourself, be kind to others. We're so interconnected. We're all part of one world, and now more than ever. Thank you so much, and have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.